The skyscraper stood like a silent monument in the middle of the city, its glass walls reflecting the golden hues of a dying sun. Inside that tower sat Victor Hale, the billionaire everyone feared, admired, and whispered about but never dared to approach. He was known for his icy demeanor, his ruthless decisions, and his sharp tongue that could silence a boardroom in seconds. People who worked under him walked on eggshells, careful never to cross his line. No one smiled at him, no one spoke casually, and no one, absolutely no one, ever dared to treat him like an ordinary human being. On the 50th floor, in his vast corner office, Victor sat at his desk, drowning in reports and deals worth millions. His life was measured in contracts and deadlines, not moments of joy. To his employees, he was a legend, but a terrifying one. To the world, he was untouchable. And to himself, he was a man locked behind walls of his own making. That evening, as the office emptied and the halls grew quiet, the cleaning staff began their nightly work. Among them was Ruth, a black woman in her mid-40s who had worked in this building for years. Life had never been easy for her, widowed young, struggling to raise her daughter Amara, but she carried herself with quiet dignity. Her daughter, a bright-eyed 6-year-old with a head full of curly hair, often accompanied her at night when babysitters were impossible to find. Amara loved tagging along. To her, the skyscraper was not a place of power and fear but a playground full of shiny elevators and endless corridors. While Ruth scrubbed floors and emptied bins, Amara skipped about, humming songs and clutching her tiny bag of sweets. That night, her bag carried just one treasure, a strawberry lollipop, her absolute favorite. But fate had a curious way of weaving stories. For while everyone else avoided Victor Hale's office like a forbidden zone, Amara wandered right toward it. The door was slightly ajar, and inside sat the man himself, shoulders hunched, staring at nothing. He looked less like a billionaire that moment and more like a lonely soul drowning in silence. Amara peeked in, unafraid. Children, after all, don't see the world the way adults do. They don't see billionaires or janitors, they just see people. She tiptoed closer, her little shoes squeaking softly against the marble floor. In her hand, she clutched the lollipop. Without hesitation, she stepped into the office, her presence breaking the fortress of silence. Victor's eyes flickered up. He expected to see another nervous employee, maybe a trembling secretary, but instead, he saw a child. His brow furrowed. "Who are you?" His voice, deep and commanding, filled the room like thunder. But Amara didn't flinch. She simply smiled, walked right up to his desk, and placed the lollipop in front of him. "You look sad," she said innocently. "This will make you happy." For the first time in years, Victor Hale was speechless. A billionaire surrounded by yes-men and sycophants, undone by the simple kindness of a child. Ruth, realizing her daughter was missing, rushed toward the office. When she saw Amara standing before Victor Hale, her heart nearly stopped. Terror coursed through her veins. What if he was angry? What if this act cost her the job she desperately needed to survive? She tried to call out, but no sound left her throat. All she could do was watch as her little girl faced the most feared man in the building, holding nothing but a lollipop and pure-hearted courage. The room froze. The air thickened with suspense. And at that exact moment, Ruth knew their lives were about to change forever, though how, she couldn't yet imagine. Victor stared at the small red lollipop sitting on his desk. His office, usually filled with the glow of expensive lamps and the cold presence of luxury, suddenly felt warmer. Because of a 6-year-old girl who dared to do what no adult ever could. His eyes softened, but only slightly, as if he was fighting a battle inside himself. He was a man who built his empire on intimidation, who never allowed emotions to interfere with business. Yet here he was, a billionaire undone by a child's gesture. Amara tilted her head, waiting for him to take it. "It's strawberry," she added, her voice as bright as sunshine. "My favorite. You can have it." Victor's throat tightened, though he didn't understand why. Memories he had buried long ago, of simpler times, of being a boy who once held his mother's hand and laughed freely, flashed in fragments. He couldn't remember the last time someone gave him something without expecting a favor, money, or power in return. Finally, he reached out. His hand, large and rigid, almost trembled as he picked up the lollipop. For a second, he just stared at it, like it was some fragile treasure he didn't deserve. Then, to Amara's delight, he unwrapped it and placed it in his mouth. The taste of strawberry, sweet and sticky, melted on his tongue, and for the first time in years, Victor Hale let out a genuine laugh. It wasn't loud or forced. It was quiet, almost broken, but it was real. Ruth gasped at the sight. She had expected anger, maybe dismissal, but not this. The man everyone feared had just laughed because of her daughter. Victor turned his gaze to Ruth, who stood frozen at the doorway. He recognized her instantly. He had seen her countless times, mopping floors in the background, invisible to the world he ruled. "She's your daughter?" he asked. Ruth nodded quickly, her hands trembling. "Yes, sir. I'm so sorry if she disturbed you. I'll take her away right now." But Victor raised a hand, silencing her. "No," he said, his voice softer than she had ever heard. "She didn't disturb me. She reminded me," he paused, searching for words he hadn't used in years, "that I'm still human." Ruth blinked, hardly believing what she was hearing. He looked back at Amara, who was now giggling, delighted that her gift had worked. "Do you know, little one," he said, leaning forward, "you're the first person in years who's given me something I didn't already have." Amara just shrugged and smiled. That's because no one else had a lollipop. Her innocence shattered every wall he had built around himself. That night became the turning point of Victor Hale's life. The man who had once been unreachable, feared, and alone began to change. Slowly, he started greeting his employees. He began asking questions, showing interest in their lives, and treating them like human beings rather than cogs in his empire. But more than that, he never forgot Ruth or Amara. He quietly arranged for Ruth to receive better pay and benefits, ensuring she no longer had to choose between food and bills. For Amara, he sent books, toys, and school supplies. Little reminders that kindness, like hers, deserved to be nurtured. The world continued to see Victor Hale as a billionaire, but inside, he carried the memory of one tiny act of courage that altered his soul. And whenever the stress of power began to weigh on him, he would reach into his desk drawer where a jar now sat, filled not with pens or business cards, but with strawberry lollipops. Because once, a little girl had dared to offer him one. And it saved him in ways no fortune ever could.